Founding and prosperity. The birth of Macondo Josie Arcadio Bunda, a restless and innovative soul, had always been fascinated by the idea of building a utopian community where his family and friends could live in harmony. After years of searching for the perfect location, he finally stumbled upon a lush, verdant valley nestled in the heart of the Colombian jungle. Enthralled by the valley's natural beauty and potential, Buendia envisioned a thriving metropolis where people could live, work, and prosper. Founding Macondo in the late 1800s, Buendia and his wife, Ursula, set out to transform their vision into reality. With unwavering determination, they cleared the land, constructed homes, and planted crops. The Buendia's infectious enthusiasm soon attracted a steady stream of settlers, drawn by the promise of a better life. As the town grew, so did its infrastructure. Buendia, being an inventive genius, designed and built innovative contraptions, such as a makeshift ice factory and an intricate system for transporting water. Macondo flourishes. As the years passed, Macondo began to flourish. The town's population swelled, and with it, a thriving economy emerged. Farmers cultivated the fertile soil, and merchants established bustling markets. The town's central square, adorned with a beautiful clock tower, became a hub of activity, where residents would gather to socialize and conduct business. Our Ursula, with her exceptional culinary skills, opened a popular bakery, where the aroma of freshly baked bread wafted through the streets, enticing the senses. In this nascent stage, Macondo embodied the essence of possibility and progress. As the town continued to grow, its residents remained optimistic. They are convinced that their little slice of paradise would forever remain a beacon of prosperity. Mystical experiences. Josie Arcadio Buendia's obsession with science and progress, as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. Josie Arcadio Buendia's fascination with science and progress only intensified. He spent every waking moment poring over books, attending seminars, and experimenting with innovative contraptions. His obsession with the rational and the tangible began to dominate his life, leaving little room for anything else. His wife, Ursula, grew concerned as she watched her husband's behavior become increasingly erratic. He would often forget to eat, sleep, and even neglect his personal hygiene in his pursuit of knowledge. Meanwhile, Ursula found herself experiencing a series of mystical events that defied explanation. She would see visions of the past and present, and sense presences that seemed to lurk just beyond the edge of perception. At first, she tried to brush it off as mere fantasy, but as the occurrences grew more frequent and intense, she could no longer ignore them. The mystical experiences left her feeling both exhilarated and terrified, as if she was tapping into a realm beyond the mundane world. The contrast between Josie Arcadio's scientific pursuits and Ursula's mystical experiences could not have been starker. While he sought to understand the world through reason and logic, she was plumbing the depths of the unknown. Their differing approaches to understanding reality created a rift between them, as if they were living in two separate worlds. As the divide grew wider, it seemed inevitable that their lives would take a dramatic turn, one that would challenge everything they thought they knew about the universe and themselves. Josie Arcadio Buendia's all-consuming passion for science and progress has pushed him to the edge of reason, while his wife Ursula's mystical experiences have opened her up to a world beyond the rational. The profound difference in their approaches to understanding reality has created a rift between them, setting the stage for a transformation that will challenge everything they thought they knew. The Gypsies' arrival. The gypsies' arrival. The dust had barely settled on the worn streets of Macondo when the gypsies arrived. Their colorful tents and wagons a stark contrast to the drabness of the village. The air was electric with excitement as the villagers gathered around, marveling at the strange and fantastical inventions the gypsies had brought with them. Among the crowd, one person stood out, Josie Arcadio, his eyes wide with wonder as he explored the various contraptions on display. One invention in particular caught his attention, a large, glowing block of ice. The gypsy vendor, noticing Josie Arcadio's fascination, offered him a chunk of the frozen treat. The young man's eyes widened as he felt the cold, smooth surface, and his fingers numb as he grasped it. It was as if he had stumbled upon a treasure trove of magic. "What is this sorcery?" Josie Arcadio asked the vendor, his voice full of awe. "It is ice, my friend," the gypsy replied with a smile. "A marvel from a far-off land, where the rivers freeze in the winter months." As Josie Arcadio continued to explore the gypsy's inventions, he became increasingly entranced by the ice. He watched, mesmerized, as the vendor used it to chill a drink, and then used the same drink to demonstrate a strange, spinning top that seemed to defy gravity. The villagers, too, were captivated by the gypsy's creations, but none more so than Josie Arcadio. As the day drew to a close, he returned to his family's modest home, his mind whirling with possibilities. What other wonders lay beyond the boundaries of Macondo? What secrets did the gypsies hold, and what could he learn from them? The Banana Company. The transformation of Macondo. The arrival of the Banana Company in Macondo marked a significant turning point in the town's history. Overnight, the sleepy, rural community was thrust into the midst of the modern world. The once quaint streets were suddenly abuzz with activity as foreigners, machinery, and technology poured in. For the first time, the residents of Macondo had access to amenities they had only dreamed of: electricity, running water, and paved roads. Wealth and prosperity. The Banana Company brought with it an influx of capital, and the town's economy began to boom. Jobs were created, and many residents found themselves earning a steady income for the first time. The sounds of laughter and music filled the air as people spent their newfound wealth on festivities and celebrations. New businesses sprouted up, catering to the needs of the company's employees and their families. The town's marketplaces were filled with exotic goods, brought in from far-flung lands, and the aroma of fresh bread and baked goods wafted through the streets. Displacement and tragedy, however, amidst the euphoria, a darker reality began to unfold. The Banana Company's aggressive expansion led to the displacement of many families, forced to leave their ancestral lands to make way for the company's sprawling plantations. Traditional ways of life were disrupted, and the cultural fabric of the community began to fray. As the company's interests took precedence, the town's natural resources were exploited, and the environment began to suffer. Tragedy struck when a devastating accident at the company's processing plant claimed the lives of several workers, leaving families shattered and the community in mourning. In conclusion, the arrival of the Banana Company brought about both positive and negative transformations to Macondo. While it brought wealth and modernity, it also led to displacement and tragedy. As the town navigated this complex web of change, it became clear that the path to progress would not be without its costs. The cycle of solitude. The inevitable pattern of solitude in the Bunda family, a peculiar phenomenon, persists, where each generation finds itself trapped in a cycle of solitude and isolation. This inherited fate is as palpable as the mist that veils the small town of Macondo, where the family's story unfolding. It is as if the family's history is predetermined, bound by an unseen force that perpetuates the cycle, generation after generation. The labyrinth of relationships. At the heart of this cycle lies a complex web of relationships, where family members struggle to form meaningful connections with one another. The bonded as are plagued by an inability to express emotions, leading to a sense of detachment and isolation. This emotional numbness is exemplified in the character of Josie Arcadio Bundia, the family patriarch, whose obsessive nature and fascination with science distract him from the world around him, including his loved ones. His wife, Forsula, though more grounded, becomes increasingly disillusioned with her husband's antics, further straining their relationship. The weight of isolation as a result, the Bunda family members grow up feeling disconnected and alone. They struggle to form lasting bonds, as evident in the tumultuous relationships between siblings, parents, and spouses. This sense of isolation is further exacerbated by the family's physical seclusion in Macondo, a town that seems to exist in a perpetual state of stagnation. The Bundi has become prisoners of their own making, trapped in a cycle of solitude that appears inescapable. Her inheritance of isolation, as the Bunda family's history unfolds, it becomes clear that this cycle of solitude is an inherited trait, passed down through generations. The family's inability to form meaningful connections and their propensity for emotional detachment are traits that repeat themselves, like a refrain, in each successive generation. The Bundias are doomed to relive the same patterns of isolation, perpetuating a cycle that seems destined to continue forever. Summary: the Bunda family's history is marked by a recurring pattern of solitude and isolation, resulting from a complex web of relationships and emotional numbness. This cycle of solitude is perpetuated through generations as family members struggle to form meaningful connections and escape the weight of their own isolation. Love and insanity. The obsession begins. Aureliano Bundio's life was one of quiet contemplation, spent poring over ancient tomes and scribbling notes in the margins. As the great-grandson of Jose Arcadio, he carried the weight of his family's eccentricities, but had always managed to maintain a sense of detachment. That was until he laid eyes on Mime, his cousin, at a family gathering. Her sparkling smile and mischievous glint sent his heart reeling, and from that moment on, he was hooked. At first, his fascination with Mime was innocent enough. He would steal glances at her during family meals, marveling at the way her dark hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall. But as time passed, his interest morphed into an all-consuming obsession. He began to see her everywhere, even when she was nowhere to be found. Her laughter echoed in his mind, and her smile haunted his dreams. As Aureliano's fixation on Mime intensified, his grip on reality began to slip. He would spend hours crafting intricate poems and sonnets in her honor, only to rip them to shreds in a fit of rage. His family grew concerned, but Aureliano was too far gone to listen. He became convinced that Mime was the key to unlocking some hidden truth, some cosmic secret that only he could decipher. Descent into madness, Aureliano's mental state continued to deteriorate as he became more and more consumed by his own fantasies. He would often be found pacing the streets of Macondo, muttering to himself about Mime's eyes, her hair, her laughter. His family tried to intervene, but Aureliano was beyond reach. He had crossed the threshold into madness, and there was no turning back. In the end, Aureliano's love for Mime had become a toxic force, devouring his sanity and leaving him a shell of his former self. As the great-grandson of Jose Arcadio, he had always been prone to eccentricity, but this was something different. This was a descent into the abyss, with no safety net to catch his fall. Wars and losses. The tumultuous years of civil war, the early years of Macondo's prosperity and tranquility were short-lived, as the Bundi soon found themselves entangled in a series of devastating civil wars. The first of these conflicts, known as the Liberal Revolution, began in 1859 and would last for over a decade. The Liberal Party, led by General Uribe, sought to topple the conservative government that had ruled Colombia for centuries. The Buendias, with their strong sense of justice and equality, naturally sided with the liberals. Jose Arcadio Bundia, the family patriarch, was an ardent supporter of the liberal cause. He saw it as an opportunity to create a more just and equal society, where the working class was free from the shackles of oppression. His sons, Jose Arcadio and Aureliano, also enlisted in the liberal army, eager to fight for their beliefs. However, the war would prove to be a brutal and unforgiving crucible. one that would test the family's resolve and ultimately lead to devastating losses. The war raged on for years, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The Bundias fought bravely, but their losses were mounting. Ejosi Arcadio, the eldest son, was killed in a skirmish with conservative forces. His death was a crushing blow to the family, and his father was consumed by grief. Aureliano, who had risen through the ranks to become a respected military leader, was gravely wounded in a later battle. His injuries would leave him permanently crippled, both physically and emotionally. As the war dragged on, the Bundia's fortunes began to decline. Their once thriving businesses were struggling to survive, and their family's influence was waning. The war had brought nothing but devastation and heartache, and the Bundias were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. In summary, the Bundias' involvement in the civil wars marked a turning point in their family's history. The devastating losses they suffered during this period, both in terms of lives lost and fortunes declined, would have a lasting impact on the family's trajectory. The Last Bundia. The House of Bundia, a legacy of cyclical time. As I stepped into the musty, dimly lit room, a sense of nostalgia washed over me. The air was thick with the whispers of the past, echoes of conversations, and the faint scent of decay. I, Aureliano Babylonia, had always been drawn to this place, the oldest part of the Bundia estate. My family's history was etched into every crack and crevice, every yellowed page and forgotten relic. In this room, I had spent countless hours as a child, listening to my aunt, Pilar Ternera, recount the tales of our family's triumphs and tragedies. She would speak of the cyclical nature of time, how events repeated themselves, and how the Bundias were cursed to relive their mistakes. I never understood the significance of her words, dismissing them as mere superstition. But now, as I delved deeper into our family's past, I began to grasp the gravity of her claims. The Bundias were a dynasty of restless souls, driven by an insatiable hunger for discovery and progress. From the pioneering spirit of Josi Arcadio Bundia to the entrepreneurial zeal of Aureliano Bundia, each generation had left its mark on the town of Macondo. Yet, with every achievement came a corresponding downfall, as if the universe sought balance in the scales of fate. As I pored over the yellowed pages of our family's history, I realized that I was not immune to this curse. My own existence was a product of this cyclical time, and I was about to uncover the secrets that would seal my own fate. As I delved deeper into the mysteries of the Bundia estate, I knew that I was on the cusp of a great revelation, one that would change the course of my life forever. But was I prepared to face the truth, or would I succumb to the same fate that had befallen my ancestors? The answer, like the secrets of the past, remained shrouded in mystery, waiting to be unearthed. The end of Macondo. The silence of Macondo, as the great wind swept through the once vibrant town of Macondo. The Bundia family's legacy was slowly erased from the collective memory of its inhabitants. The streets, once bustling with life and activity, grew quiet and still. The houses, with their brightly colored walls and vibrant gardens, crumbled into ruin, their walls cracked and worn by the relentless passage of time. The air was thick with the silence of abandonment, and the sweet scent of blooming flowers gave way to the acrid smell of decay. The Bundia family's legacy fades. Gone were the days of Colonel Aureliano Bundia's impassioned speeches and his countless attempts to invent the impossible. Gone, too, were the tales of his descendants, each one more fantastical and extraordinary than the last. The countless love affairs, the endless wars, and the cyclical nature of their lives, all were reduced to mere whispers on the wind. The town's inhabitants, once so enamored with the Bundia's eccentricities and passions, now forgot the very names of the family members who had once brought so much joy and chaos to their lives. The erosion of the Bundia legacy was not a sudden event, but rather a gradual process that occurred over generations. As the family's fortunes waned, so too did their influence over the town. The great wind that swept through Macondo was merely the final blow, the coup de grace that extinguished the flickering flame of their memory. In the end, the town of Macondo was left with nothing but the faintest echoes of a once vibrant past. The Bundia family, with all their triumphs and failures, their loves and losses, was lost to the sands of time, forgotten in the silence of Macondo. A summary, as the great wind sweeps through Macondo, the Bunda family's legacy is erased from the town's collective memory. The town's vibrancy gives way to decay, and the family's eccentricities and passions are reduced to mere whispers on the wind. The erosion of their legacy is a gradual process that culminates in their complete disappearance from the town's history.